I'd rather make a decision and deal with the consequences than think about something forever. I believe right now that we're in the great ignore for sales messaging. I'm going to ignore your email. I'm going to ignore your phone call. I'm going to ignore your DM because you probably don't have anything to say to me that's interesting.
We tried to bring in some people at Outreach from time to time, with these big old pedigrees, fancy old logos, and frankly, many fell flat on their faces.
Who got you here won't get you there. It's bullshit, man. You know what won't get you there is somebody that's unwilling to change. You don't know something's wrong until you try it, and you don't know something's right until you try it. So you might as well try some more stuff.
The bucket of, call it, account prioritization has been largely forgotten about as we built technology.
When I hear about these companies, they're like, yeah, our AE source accounts, it drives me nuts.
Behind the scenes, it was a small group of people that were doing everything.
Welcome back to the GTM podcast. It's your host, Scott Barker.
I want to know how this insane growth actually happened.
The revenue tech stack is messy right now. All the leaders that I'm talking to are reevaluating their stacks really from the ground up. Do we need 10 different solutions? What were we even solving for in the first place when we bought this piece of technology? Was it a ZERP era nice to have, or was it a need to have for our entire revenue team? If you are one of those leaders, I would recommend that you take a look at Apollo. Maybe you think you know Apollo. Maybe you've taken a look at them in the past. But I've personally looked under the hood recently, and if your goal is to reduce and simplify your tech stack and have best-in-breed data layered in with AI, they would be at the top of my list. There's a reason that Rippling and Stripe both just recently switched over, and we worked with their team to create an interactive demo page, which you can check out at www.apollo.io/GTM. Almost all I hear these days is we need to figure out how to best leverage AI in our sales process and how can we consolidate and simplify our tech stack. With Apollo, I believe you can accomplish both. So again, check them out for yourself at www.apollo.io/GTM. And we're live. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the GTM podcast. As always, you've got Scott Barker here. Pumped to be hanging with you as always. We appreciate you coming back every week. Listener growth continues to go crazy, so always humbled. And this episode in particular that you decided to listen to is going to break all of the records known to the GTM podcast. I can feel it already. And it is largely due to our guest. I'm joined by the one and the only Mark Kosoglow. What's up, man?
Not much. I thought it was going to be because of that dope shirt you have on, but maybe I'm wrong.
I'm pulling out all the stops, man. Shirt, new view. Let's try it all. Man. So I usually do a big introduction at the beginning. I don't think Mark needs much of an introduction if you've been in the space for a while. But Mark was, of course, the former CRO of Outreach, CRO of Catalyst. Now, we're hearing it here first, the CEO of a brand new company that we could not be more excited about. He also happens to be just like a dear friend of mine, someone I truly look up to, I admire, I enjoy spending time with, and he makes a really good off-roading buddy when you're on the golf course.
Let's go.
And that's the only way we can kick it off. Let's go. Cool, man. So let's just get right into it because there's a billion things we can talk about. But where I wanted to start, and this is just, a little bit of love for you is, so I wasn't there at the early days of Outreach, but I was there for 4 years, 2018 to 2022. And I had this front row seat at your personal and professional growth. And really, and I mean this, that I was sort of in awe of it. And the way that you led was by doing. And truly, like, there was no better AE in the organization than you. Nobody understood the customer better than you. Arguably, nobody understood the product better than you. Nobody understood these decisions that were happening in RevOps or sales lofts or sales ops, sorry, how that was actually affecting the
Yeah.
little slip there. We're back in outreach. So all we're thinking about is the competition sales loft, baby. Um, how it was really affecting the organization. And watching that fundamentally change my personal view on one thing. And I had been told my whole sales, SaaS, now VC career, that what got you here won't get you there.
Mm-hmm.
And through a talent lens, that means you're going to need a different guy or gal from 1 to 10, 10 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 plus. And we try to bring in some people at outreach outside from time to time, with these big old pedigrees, fancy old logos. And frankly, many fell flat on their faces. And we'd always come back to Mark. Be like, Mark, we gotta fix this again. And you were the guy who had been there since day one. You knew where the bodies were buried. And more important, I think, than anything, you actually cared more than anyone. And, we were talking before this, you see this with great CEOs, and VCs love it when a CEO is at the same company running it still 12, 15, 20 years later. And when you look at the best performing companies in the market, their CEO is literally the founder. But for some reason, we don't think that's the case for revenue leaders. And so my question to you is, do you think that notion of having to constantly level up leadership every few years is a fallacy?
Yes, I 100% think it's a fallacy. And a bunch of companies I consult for and advise and just are friends with the CEOs or whoever, it's this, I don't know who seeded the market with this, who got you there won't get you, or who got you here won't get you there. It's it's bullshit, man. Uh, you know what won't get you there is somebody that's unwilling to change. And that's not about did they get you here or whatever. That's just about like what type of person they are. And probably the one of the biggest compliments of my entire life was we hired a CRO that didn't work out at Outreach. And I was really worried about what he was doing to the culture. And, you know, it was funny, like in the first month, he somehow had lost his cell phone 4 times. And that's why he didn't call me back. And I remember we had our first hard forecast call, like the first time at Outreach, where I was like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? And I called him and he didn't call me back for 24 hours. And he didn't have the urgency, or I don't know what it was, but nice guy and everything. But I called Manny and I was like, Manny, this guy's not going to work out. And to Manny's credit, like he listened and he acted and he let that guy go. They decided to part ways. And a couple of days after that happened, Manny and I went for a walk, along the water there at the office in Seattle. And Manny's like, listen, I'm going to have you really run the sales team. Like I need you to keep doing it. And he's like, but I'm nervous. He goes, you're the fastest learner I've ever met on the planet. He's like, but you sometimes trust your own ideas too much. And I thought that was just like such insightful feedback, because I was like, well, how can I be a learner, but then trust my own feedback? He's like, well, Mark, you can listen to a conversation and in 10 minutes, you can do what they say, but you do it inside your own lens of your own comprehension versus kind of expanding how you perceive and think about things by getting other perspectives in. And he got me an executive coach at that time. And I found a couple other mentors and friends like Stan Hansen and Lars Nielsen and people like that I started to talk to more regularly. And he was right. Like I was a little bit trapped in my own self. But that's the difference between who will get you here, won't get you there, is if I couldn't get us there, I would have just taken that feedback and it wouldn't have changed myself because the company needed me to change. And so the real measure is the person willing to change in the journey, or do they just want to stay working the same way? Like now, some things about me remain constant. And Scott. Like, I'm a little goofy. I really like to have deep relationships with people. I like to be funny and mess around. I'm very positive. I like people to feel safe and all that kind of stuff. And those things won't change about me. But how I think about operating a revenue org to me is an unwritten book, and all the pages are still empty. And it's my job to write them with what the company needs right now. And whether that's a $10 million company like Catalyst or a $200 million company like Outreach, I'm willing to operate in the way that is best for the company at the time. And sometimes the problem is when you bring in somebody from the outside, they want to treat a $200 million company like it's a $1 billion company, or they want to treat a $10 million company like it's a $100 million company. And I would argue sometimes who can get you, who you think can get you to the next place is actually wrong for the company right where it's at right now. And so, like, I think it's a very delicate balance. But for me, in my new role as a CEO, like, I very much believe that who got me here can get me there as long as they're willing to change the parts of them that need to change to do that job.
Hmm. Yeah, really well put. And, that's part of the reason I'm so insanely excited that you've made this jump into founder, because I think that is ultimately what you're describing there, and that skill set that you have of being able to very quickly comprehend new ideas and distill those into actions fast. It's like one of the number one things, we look for in founders. I remember we're just recently doing diligence on a company, and I was super close, and I was very fortunate that we knew the other investor. So I actually got to sit in on a board meeting before making the investment, which if you ever get a chance to do that, it's like cheating. And
Yeah.
the thing that pushed me over the edge was there was smart people in the room. There was, the CEO of Verizon and it's in the telecom space. And he had all these people giving him advice, and he was able to quickly take the pieces that he knew were relevant to his business, because he still knows his business better than anyone else. And he got rid of the ideas that didn't work and then immediately put into action the ones that did. So I think like having your own point of view is a superpower. And that's what we ask founders to do. Why can't we ask our revenue leaders, to do the same?
I
One
think
more yeah,
revenue is
go ahead.
interesting, Scott, because it's so black and white. It's not like some other areas of the business where there's not like a definitive measure of how you do. Like, I talk about, there's kind of two types of workers. There's project-based workers that are creating things, and maybe you can measure if they're on time or quality level, but it's much more qualitative. And then there's like numbers workers, which is like a salesperson. Like, either hit your quota or don't. It's like black and white. It's binary. And so I think that that's in those binary jobs. Sometimes what happens is because the consequences are so dire and the judgment is so exact that you become, that paralysis by analysis person, and you wait too long. Like, versus in my personal life, in my professional life, I have a mantra. I'd rather make a decision and deal with the consequences than think about something forever. And I think that is a good perspective and a good angle for a revenue leader to have, is as long as people understand, like, I'm going to decide quickly. That means I'm going to get probably a few more decisions wrong than other people, but we're going to iterate and find what's right much faster that way. And that's my personal belief. And so, I think that I love that CEO would listen and act right away. And you know what? Probably some of the stuff he heard and did was wrong, but the thing is like, you don't know something's wrong until you try it, and you don't know something's right until you try it. So you might as well try some more stuff. And but you need to balance that with one of my other stupid sayings, which is, if it ain't broke, don't break it. You know what I mean? And sometimes we tinker around a little bit too much trying to optimize things, and we break something that actually doesn't need to be fixed.
Yeah. I would argue that is why, Manny identified you as the fastest learner that he knows, is because if you are making decisions quickly, you're going to get so many more iterations of learning, of cycles of like, okay, this one went well, let's fix it. This one didn't. So speed can often lead to increased learning.
I'm not married to my idea either, Scott. Like just because it's my idea doesn't mean I need to keep it, doesn't mean it needs to continue. I don't give a crap whose idea it is. And I have another, not to make this the corny saying podcast, but I always tell my teams like, we think is better than me think. Because if me has to think of all the ideas, we's gonna lose. And so like that, when you get that little tight and that outreach, I was really lucky. I had a 2 or 3 year there period with 4 VPs and me that we were just tight, and we iterated together. Like my enterprise person helped the SMB person, the SMB person helped the enterprise person, and we collectively made decisions. But we moved really fast. And I think that that's a key component. Is if you want to be a revenue leader that sticks around, you have to surround yourself with people that are got your back, that can iterate with you, they can be vulnerable with, that you can take risks with, and that like you are open to their ideas, and that being the right idea as much as your own ideas being the right idea.
Yeah, yeah. You just reminded me of something. We had Dennis Leandris on the podcast recently, the CRO of Procore, and he had this really interesting idea where he identified through his journey that, and he thinks it's true in every organization, that about 20% of people do all the work at any given organization. You talked about surrounding yourself with the right people. And I think I've seen firsthand, could probably name the 25 people at Outreach who were in there doing things, just having this outweighted and outsized impact across the organization. They could be a BDR, they could be an AE, they could be on the engineering team, they could be on product, but their velocity and impact is so much greater. And Dennis advises for some companies now, and one of the first things he does is try and set up what he calls like a T25 program, which I thought is brilliant. You identify the top 25 people in your organization. Salary bands don't exist for them. You pay them really well to keep them. You give them access directly to the CEO, to leadership. They weigh in on things above and beyond their role. And Procore has had incredible retention. And this idea is something I'm kind of obsessed with since he told me it, and I think every
Love that.
SaaS company should implement something like that. Yeah, it's a good one. All right, so we kind of buried the lead here, but let's dive into it, and we're just going to openly share, and then we might have to cut some things out because this company is still in stealth, but you've made the jump to full-time CEO and founder of a company called Operator. What's really, really special is it is the first company that GTM Fund has ever incubated. And we could not be more excited that we have you as the CEO. I think the space lends right to our superpower of, having this network of 300 plus CROs. Do you want to talk a little bit about how this came to be? Because you had a good job and lots of good consulting gigs and pretty much could have done anything.
Maybe. So it's funny, I've known you and Max for 5, 6, 7 years. I probably know Max for almost 10 years now. And it's funny about Max is in the beginning, he had a sales hacker, and so he had to be neutral in the space. And I always was weary of Max because I was like, well, I think he likes the sales loft guys as much as us. Oh, he's trying to, sidle up to these people, which, you have every right to do. But I'm kind of like are you on my team or are you not on my team type of guy, right? And then so when we acquired Sales Hacker, and I got to meet and work with both of you so intimately, and you guys were so involved in so many of our best and biggest deals, it just creates that kind of bond that's really special. And so when I went to Catalyst, we made Max an advisor at Catalyst, and he helped us. And I think you did a little bit in some of the same ways that you helped us at Outreach. And then as I was winding down at Catalyst and trying to decide if I wanted to stick around or move on, Max approached me and he's like, listen, there's a space in technology that has billions of dollars to spend and extremely low NPS. He's like, I think it has market opportunity for disruption. He's like, what would you think about working at a company or founding a company that is incubated inside a GTM fund. And at that time, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be a CEO really. Like, I like running revenue. I like staying in my wheelhouse. But Max, probably knowing me a little too well, was like, go talk to some people about this problem. See if it's actually a problem. See if we should actually do it. And he knew what he was doing. Like, now my curiosity is spinning. I start talking to people and having conversations, and the idea starts to crystallize. And I start to have my own thoughts, and I'm verifying those. And about a month later, and 40 or 50 conversations in, I'm in. You know what I mean? Like, this is a problem. I think I have a solution I'm baking on. I definitely know how to disrupt it and cause some chaos in this industry that could lead to some change. Maybe I should do this. And so Max suggested we raise some money, and we uh, took about 13 phone calls, 14 phone calls, and got offer sheets from almost all those people, and finally picked the partner that was best for us. And now we're off and running. I met my co-founder just a couple weeks before we closed the funding, and we really vibed and continue to. And then we just have a nice little tight, strong team. There's 5 of us. We just hired our 6th person, and we are. It's amazing what happens when you hire mature professionals who are experts in their field and you give them space to run. And when you do that and you couple that with a vision that makes sense to them instinctually, things move really fast. And we're moving really, really fast, building out a product right now that I think is solving some of the wrongs that I feel somewhat responsible for at Outreach. And, you know, um, I remember at Outreach in our first year, we had this user called Vlad the Destroyer. We called him Vlad the Destroyer. And he was the first user to send 1,000 emails in a day. And he broke the system early on. And we're like, oh, crap. And he dialed into, Kinzer, who was one of our co-founders at the time. And Kinzer was implementing everybody and doing everything, which looking back was a genius move. And so he talked to Vlad, and Vlad, did we fix the problem, beef up the infrastructure? Boom. A couple weeks later, Vlad the Destroyer strikes again, 10,000 emails in a day, then 100,000 emails in a day. We finally kicked them off the platform, but unfortunately, we're never able to program out that kind of behavior. And despite all of the default settings that we put inside of Outreach to prevent people from acting like that, people could go in and change them. And, there needed to be some flexibility there. So I don't think that we could have done something differently. But when I started at Outreach, research suggested it took 7 to 9 touches to book a meeting. At the height of Outreach, it took about 15. And after COVID, it takes 20 to 25 touches to book a meeting. If you do the math, it's almost economically unviable to sustain that level of activity and do and deal with the results that you get because they're just so lackluster. And I feel like somewhat responsible for the proliferation of activity and automation and touches. And so I'm on a mission to turn 20 touches back into 2. And I think it's possible to be interesting and creative enough and relevant enough that if you do the hard work, it only takes you a couple times to reach out to somebody for them to be attracted into a conversation with you where you can help them figure out what they want. And I'll share an interesting story about that kind of helped me cement my thinking I've drove the same car that I started with at Outreach almost 10 years ago until a couple months ago. It was a 2014 Ford Flex, and my kids hated it. They called it the toaster. But you know what? Paid off. It ran. It's big enough if I need to move a kid into college, I can shove all this stuff in there, no problem. And so dad's not getting a new car because dad's not a car guy. I could give a crap about a car. So I'm talking to a friend who loves cars, and he introduces me to a friend of his that lives a couple streets over. And I walk over there one day to meet him because this guy's a big barbecue guy, and I love barbecue and I like cooking, and my girlfriend loves cooking. So we went over there to meet him, and just an interesting guy. He was a trainer on the U.S. Olympic wrestling team 2 Olympics ago, and so just a wealth of stories. But in his garage and again, I'm not a car guy, is this Jaguar, and it's a sexy ass car. I mean, like, whoa. And so I'm talking about the Jaguar. Then he's like, oh, do you like Porsches? I'm like, yeah, I like a Porsche. I don't really care. And he's like, well, I have this 2012 Porsche Cayenne. I buy him. This is the ultimate one. The next thing you know, who 3 days later is buying this dude's Porsche? Me. And so that's where I'm like, listen, a salesperson, somebody that's interesting, what a result of their being interesting, creative, unique, and an expert is they attract people into a state of demand. They pull them down in the buyer's journey. And I wasn't considering a car. I wasn't even aware that I needed a car. I was completely unaware and anti buying a new car. But in 3 days, through education, being interesting, being a nice person, being creative, this guy got me to buy his, creme de la creme 2012 Porsche Cayenne. And so that's what I drive now. And my kids think I'm cool. So like, that's awesome. But that's the, to me is the problem right now is we just want to send everybody a Porsche Cayenne brochure in the mail and hope that a few people that are looking for cars will come to the dealership and then we can convince them to buy one versus attracting someone into a conversation where you can educate them and they come to their own understanding that they want to do something and then they move forward.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great story that exemplifies kind of where we're at. And where we're at is just sending thousands and thousands of brochures out, and automating now, even automating what the brochure says and the graphics in them, and using AI to generate all of this. And so I know along this journey with Operator, you've had hundreds and hundreds of conversations with sales leaders. What is making them frustrated today in their technology stack?
Um, they all want to employ automation and AI, but the more that they employ it, the worse their results get. And that contradiction is extremely frustrating to them. They think that, well, if I automate things more, less stuff will fall through the cracks, so I should get better results. And then they think if I use AI, like that can help scale and give me cost savings that, should be able to duplicate results, but at a less expensive price. But what ends up happening with either of those extremes, and when people start to move to those, is that you get the low hanging fruit. Like an AI SDR is really good at getting the low hanging fruit, but guess what? There's only so much low hanging fruit, and after that, it sucks at getting the fruit high up in the tree. And just like automation is really, really good at making sure nothing falls through the crack, but really, really bad a lot of times at the messaging and the context and stuff because there's no human involved. And so what ends up happening is sales leaders then, because they're so married to their solution, what do they do when they're not getting the results at the current levels of volume? They crank that volume up. And then they start coming to RevOps and being like, I don't have enough accounts. And I start to question people and say, listen, is it that you don't have enough accounts? Or is that you're not converting accounts at a high enough rate to make the accounts that you have work? And so then what they end up doing is they don't like that challenge. So then they're like, well, I'll get more accounts. And now they start to get into the C tier of accounts and the D tier of accounts and the F tier of accounts. And they put those in there to meet their activity and their volume needs when those accounts are never going to convert anyway. And so that is the kind of the death spiral is I want to do stuff in a modern automated AI way. I get immediate results. So I put more into that. I get rid of the people that are making it happen. All of a sudden I get to the tough stuff. It doesn't work. I crank up the volume. Now I'm burning. Now I'm going after accounts and people I shouldn't. And the next thing you know, like I've lost my job trying to do something that I thought was going to help me. But actually I made a chain of decisions around that just led to my demise.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. This, I feel like the bucket of, call it, account prioritization has been largely forgotten about as we built technology. Technology always built for efficiency, speed. We can do more. We can do it faster. We can do it, arguably better. Um, but I shared this example the other day, and I'm sure you've seen it with the reps you've managed. Is back when I was leading BDR teams, sometimes they'd have, 5,000 accounts they could go after. And this BDR is overwhelmed. They don't know where to start. They're automating everything they can to try and reach out to as many people as possible. And then at the end of the quarter, when they're struggling, I would do my own research and be like, okay, here are the top 5 I think you should go after. Do not reach out to anyone else. Just work on these 5 for the next 2 weeks. see what happens. And almost magically, they'd create an opportunity in one of those 5, which is like totally against what
If
you
not
would
all.
think. You have, yeah, you're like, oh, here's 5,000. I should be able to have a much better chance at getting one of those 5,000 versus you break it to 5 and boom, magic happens. And it's this ability to give people focus back, because focus is everything in sales, everything. And I think we need to get back to that. All right, this is going to be a tough question because I think there's a few. It requires you to put your Nostradamus hat on a little bit, because
Let's go.
I think the strategies of how we go to market are changing across the board, primarily because everything is breaking down and we're seeing diminishing returns on outbound, on ad spend, on everything. And so you couple that now with all this new technology being built, and many of it is built for the old predictable revenue model, which is breaking down. So I don't care how fast you make that, how efficient you make that, the strategy is breaking down. So we're just layering more and more technology on a broken strategy. So to your best knowledge, where do you see the new go-to-market strategy going? And then if you can try your best to think about what a new tech stack that enables that strategy to look like.
I don't know. So again, you're like asking me to look into the crystal ball a little bit. And
Mhm.
this is just my personal opinion, is I think that we have played out the tons of accounts strategy, as you just kind of hinted at from your BDR days. And I liken it a little bit to like banner ads. Like, when's the last time you saw a banner ad on a web page? I can't remember, but those
Let
used to
alone
work.
clicked it.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
let alone clicked it. Remember the monkey punch one? It's like on every
I do
website.
actually.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so those worked for a while until every website started trying to monetize themselves with banner ads. And then they got to where people didn't notice them. So what ended up happening? Now they became motion oriented. And then that got saw an uptick, then they dropped. Then you could play like a little game in it. And then that upticked and it dropped. And ultimately what ended up happening is everybody just consciously ignored it. And I believe right now that we're in the great ignore for sales messaging. I'm going to ignore your email. I'm going to ignore your phone call. I'm going to ignore your DM because you probably don't have anything to say to me that's interesting, nothing that's relevant. What you're going to do is, I just did a post today around personalization, and there's 4 levels of personalization. And actually, I think there's 5, but the 5th one is so fucking bad. Like, I don't even want to include it. But like, the lowest level of personalization is, this is what my product does and the pain points we solve. Like, if you're doing that kind of messaging, please stop. The next level up from that is industry. What's going on in your industry? Then there's the role or persona. Like, what do you as a LP or a GP at a VC fund, Scott, what do you care about, right? Um, then there's the company level. Now we're starting to get pretty good. And then there's the person level, the individual. Well, the line is at between role and company. So those bottom 2 or 3 is where 90% of messaging exists. The top 2, company and personas, where 90% of the results exist. And so why aren't we matching up the activity with where the results are? And the reason is because it takes a whole lot of trust to get there. And I learned this in my own org at Catalyst. I had a SDR named Sanjay Day. He's an amazing email writer, but I made him adhere to certain content or certain activity standards because that's what I knew to do. And it hurt his results. And I don't know if I ever fully got to where I trusted Sanjay enough to be like, just do your thing. Like, your job is to do this many things. And if your numbers look bad everywhere else, but as long as you're delivering them and they convert well, like, that's all I care about. And so I've gotten tangled up in this mess too. I'm not like some kind of person that doesn't have scars and bruises from doing it wrong, but I'll learn from what I did wrong. And the more free I let Sanjay be, the better results he got for me. And what held me back from doing that, I'm not quite sure. But we have to help people understand, like, they have to go to that level of personalization that matters and is most effective, but you can't just do it with easy data. So I could be like, oh, Scott, I see that you worked at Outreach for 4 years. That's easy data anybody can get. Even though that's at you as a person, it's not very effective. I need to find the really hard data. Like Scott likes to off-road on golf carts and private golf courses. If I sent you an email about that, like you would respond, but that's really hard to get
Check
data.
out these new tires you can add to golf courts. Golf carts.
There's only 2 or 3 people in the world that know about your hobby of off-roading on golf carts. And we're the only 1 or 2 that remember. But like that's what
and maybe a pant protector. A pant protector as well. You could probably sell. Don't wear white pants when you're golf cart off-roading.
No white pants. But that's like a perfect example of hard to get data personalized at you elicits a response. It's interesting, it's creative, it is relevant. And so I think that is where the strategy needs to go, is we need to lose the banner ad of the strategy and get to the personalized Instagram ad that you don't even really realize an ad. You know it is an ad, but subconsciously it's interesting enough, valuable enough, and relevant enough that you actually want to click into it to figure out what's happening. And at Operator, we have a very lofty premise, but like, what if you checked your spam folder first when you checked your email because emails were so awesome and you learned so much? What if when you got a spam risk on your phone, you picked up because the last 10 times you've done it, you'd have such an interesting conversation? And the best AEs do this. The best SDRs do this. The best CSMs do this. And they do it innately because it's just part of their personality and who they are. And they also lots of times have a level of business acumen that allows them to connect the dots in a really valuable way. And that's what I think Operator is trying to replicate, is like, how do we scale business acumen to really give people insights that attract their customers into conversations where they can realize, actually, you know what? I want to sell my Ford Flex and buy a Porsche.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I even look at my own, to that example of like looking forward to email. So in my role, I get a ton of people wanting to make introductions. Hey, my buddy's starting a company. Hey, check this out. Hey, check this out. And it's coming kind of from all angles, LinkedIn, messages, WhatsApp, it's coming. And, I have to put some filters on it, be like, okay, I'll get back to them. But that one is a 3-day priority. But then there's certain people through value and understanding that as soon as an email comes in from X, I'm all over it. And I know the intro is going to be great. I know it's like super relevant, timely. They know me well. They know what I'm looking for. And it immediately goes, and like, I can't wait to respond to them. And again, that goes down to being contextually relevant, them building value, being an expert, knowing what I want. And yeah, it's kind of the whole debate we've had for a long time about like personalization versus relevance. And like, if you can be hyper relevant, you will win. I don't care how good or bad your email is. If you have somehow understood that we are currently in the market for a new CRM that works well with Gmail and, helps us as a VC firm, and you somehow identify that, you can send me 3 words, like, and I'll probably respond, and so I'm excited for this shift because, at the end of the day, we all have problems we want solved. Salespeople are the conduit for solving those problems. But in this era of the great ignore, we're actually losing out on a lot of great problems that could be solved quickly and effectively. And if Operator can be that bridge, I welcome that day, and also bring just some level of excitement back to the sales profession as a whole. Like, people should be pumped.
Yeah, I listen, like I said, I feel semi-responsible for where we're at. And I want to right that wrong. And it's kind of funny. You talk to a lot of people, and the general consensus is Scott Barker has a corpus of knowledge, and then he has a few trusted people in his circle that he'll go to test an idea and get feedback. And when you think about that, that's a very closed system. It's an echo chamber. It's you and the people that that you probably have deep relationships with or history with. Like if you called me, you probably would have a sense of what I'd say and I have a sense of what you'd want to hear because we know each other so well. And if you live in that world only, you are extremely limited in your growth. But when a salesperson that you've never met before, never talked to before, can share something with you about yourself that you didn't even know, that's when you start to open up to what else can they teach me. And so, for example, we just ran a data set on some customer engagement data that we have. And we found that on a list of 100 companies, there were a few companies that were extreme outliers in their data. And one example specifically was a company that the last three times that they changed executives, so something in the C suite, they lost 37% of their frontline managers. That was more than 2x the average. Now imagine I'm an outside salesperson and I say, hey, Scott, did you know the last three times you changed an executive, this, and we saw that you just changed an executive recently, and your 37% of your frontline leaders have lost the last three times. Like, we can help you with our employee engagement software to help you understand how to keep those frontline leaders so you don't have as much churn and change. That is an amazing message. That breaks through the noise. That teaches me something about myself I didn't know. Now I'm curious. Now my lizard brain is engaged. It's attracted to you. Like, what else do you know? What else can you teach me? And that external stuff then starts to help me educate myself in an area that my close knit group can't. And so that's what the great ignore is resulting in is echo chamber, same thinking, undiversified thought. And we know where that goes, right? We fought that really, really hard in SaaS for a long time in our leadership and our diversity with hiring and stuff like that. A lot of companies, I know at Outreach, we fought the shit out of it. Like we're constantly striving to do that. And I think as buyers, we need to encourage buyers to do the same. And sometimes we don't want to talk to a salesperson, but maybe they know more about something than we do. Maybe they know more about us than we do, and they have a different perspective. And that kind of opens things up if we're willing to engage in that conversation. But right now, I ain't engaging with anybody that's like, "Hey, Mark, saw you just were the new CEO of Catalyst. You know, you might have a problem with pipeline gen. Do you want to talk for 30 minutes next week?" Delete. No, I do
Yeah.
not.
I got 10 people to go to for pipeline gen. I've
Right.
got a list of them. Yeah. That's a good call out and interesting behavior too of what ends up happening too is these little echo chambers. They happen on our GTM Fund Slack. They happen in Pavilion. Is there's these little circles and everyone's just doing what everyone else is doing because those are the trusted people in their network versus we need people to be sharing and giving us new ideas. So without going too deep into it, because we don't want to completely spoil the big launch we're going to do, but how would a salesperson who has an operator, what would their day look like?
So I believe fundamentally that RevOps should be empowered to deliver three things to a sales rep. One, a great book of business filled with accounts that are relevant. Two, the list of appropriate people that we should be contacting those accounts. And three, a relevant creative insight that allows me to break through the noise to get to them. All three of those things are things that can be done at scale by an expert and passed to a rep. A rep shouldn't have to, like when I hear about these companies, they're like, yeah, our AE source accounts. It drives me nuts. And, giving somebody a Zoom info license to go grab 100 people a day to throw in a sequence. We did that at Outreach. That's nuts. And, then expecting somebody that may be young in their career or maybe somebody that has a ton of deals to do the hard work of the right research and connecting the dots and finding the hard to find data to break through the noise, that's unrealistic. And so to me, I think what the day of a rep should look like is here's the accounts I should go after, here's the people I should go after, and here's the insights I'm going to use. I'm going to use all the channels I can to try to get in front of that person so that they can get eyeballs on this thing that they're probably going to be attracted to having a conversation with me because of. And so that's where that's what I think the day is like, um, we talked about this a lot at Outreach, like how much time people lose in admin a day. And I don't know if it's gotten any better. It may have gotten worse, quite honestly. because of the volume of activity that most companies are requiring reps to do. And so they're doing these monotonous activities. Like if you have, just think about it for a second, Scott. If you have an account with Zoom Info, why is your team ever looking for contacts? Why? Wouldn't you just know every title that you need to know and put it in the system? There's no reason for them to go be picking contacts. So I don't even understand that behavior. Like, why would you have somebody do that? But that's probably the defined behavior in 90% of companies. And what's crazy is I actually met an SDR. It's I'm going to forget his last name. It's Will F. He's like Foggingham or something like that. He does cold call videos, and he's usually with his kids doing the cold calls. And I called him, and I was like, Will, like, I'm like, you're so good at cold calls, dude. And I'm like, why? And he's like, my company provides me the account, the person, and something interesting to say. He's like, all I gotta do is pick up the phone. He's like, the kids can be going crazy over there. I don't care. I got my phone. I know what to say. And he got his little, and he's him, and he's not afraid to be himself on the phone, which, operator won't help with that, except for maybe giving you the confidence that you can be yourself because you have something interesting to say. But it can give you that information that you can use in a call, in an email, in a DM. Maybe you give it to an AI landing page company to create a landing page, or a sequence creator, or whatever you want to feed it with. But the problem with AI is most of it's working off such bad data, and the large language models that it's being trained on are not specific to sales enough that it's just never going to deliver you good results.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's usher that world in. You heard it here first, operator. Let's make it happen. Let's get this in front of every organization that's out there. For me, sales has always been about one, creativity. I think it's a very creative profession when done right. And that's always been the most rewarding thing. Is like it's solving puzzle pieces, it's fixing people's problems. And I think we've lost a lot of the creativity. It's also about connection. It's having a true connection with another human being. And again, through automation and these KPIs that hold us to these ridiculous numbers, it's impossible to have connection with, hundreds, thousands of people at once. And then, the last piece that is big is we talked about already is focus. I think if you have focus, creativity, and connection, that is how you shine as a sales rep. And I think the world that you kind of outlined there will give people back focus, connection, and creativity, which I'm extremely excited to see. Well, Mark, this is amazing. Obviously, anyone listening to this, go check out Operator, join the waitlist. I know the waitlist is pretty ridiculous already. A lot of people excited about what's going on. So have patience. We'll onboard people as soon as possible. But it's been cool to see the market's reaction. But I always ask two final questions, and I know you'll have some good answers for these as we wrap up. I do keep them intentionally vague, so take them wherever you want. First question is, what is one widely held belief that revenue leaders believe to be true that you think is absolute bullshit?
That you can't be friends with the people that are on your teams. I am on a mission to be close personal friends with the people that I work with, and those things last forever. One of our first reps at Outreach, Brian Gerard, I hadn't talked to him in a couple years. I was making a trip to LA. I called him, extended my trip 2 days, stayed with him and his family in his house, met his kids, hugged his kids that I'd heard about forever and never got to meet. Got to see his wife again, who I hadn't seen since a president's club here and there. And, Brian is a very special person in my life, and I have a deep friendship with him. And, that is something that I think ultimately pays off in the end. And that doesn't mean you don't hold people accountable. It doesn't mean you don't have tough conversations, but it does. But what it does mean is it's okay to get personal and intimate and transparent with people, and that usually starts a friendship.
I love it. Couldn't agree more. I'll share a funny story. When I was early in my career, I was like a senior manager of BD, looking to get the director title, and my CEO at the time said, you smile too much when you're with your team. No one's going to take you serious as a leader if you smile that much. And thankfully did not listen to that advice, but it is out there that you have to gain respect or trust. You need to like put on this persona that you're not an actual human being, which is
He'd have
bullshit.
fired my goofy ass, that's for sure. After he heard my 83rd crazy metaphor story, he'd got rid of me.
I love it. Final question as we wrap up. Everyone's looking for a silver bullet. We've been in this game enough to know there is no silver bullets. But what is one tactic or strategy that's working for you right now at Operator?
Well, I have a funny silver bullet saying because I'll end with our theme we started with, which is silver bullets silver bullets only kill werewolves better than regular people. So why do you need silver bullets when lead ones are just as effective? So yeah, don't there's no the silver bullet doesn't work. It's just doesn't make any sense, right? But something that I think is working really well for me in my career, and that has I think accelerated a lot of stuff we're doing at Operator is just moving my personal journaling in the morning to a LinkedIn post. And people don't believe me, but I've done it in front of people to prove it is I have a system where I capture ideas. And in the morning, I sit down, I look through the ideas, I find the one that touches me the most, and I spend no more than 20 minutes writing it. And if it's an emergency or something, maybe 30. But after that, it gets worse. And so I've just developed a Monday or a morning routine, 20 minutes, bust out my post, don't overthink it, don't over edit it, just get it out there, make sure it sounds like me, make sure it has an opinion to it. And that's built my network like crazy. And, the other day I needed to set some meetings and it took me 2 hours to set 20 meetings. And,
Hell yeah.
again, and I think that aligns exactly to what Operator's doing is I'm creative, I'm personal, I'm interesting, or I think people think that. And so when I go ask for something now, then it's not a cold, weird ask that's not connected to something. And so I would say that like building your personal brand on LinkedIn, other than getting my job at Outreach, I don't think that there's been any single thing that's affected my career more than that.
Yeah. Great. Great call out. I actually almost tagged you in a post that Jason Lemkin did last week. And
The
Jason,
one where he
if you're
said
listening,
sales leaders
you're
that
you're
post a lot aren't
you're
good.
incredible. Yeah. He said he's
Yeah.
never seen an example of a leader who posts on LinkedIn that's actually good. And I was gonna tag you. I was like, well, Mark's done a pretty fucking good job. And it's not binary, right? How could it be so black and white? You can do both.
I've never seen a CEO of an events company that posts every day that's good either. So you can take that how you will.
Shots fired. Jason, if you want to come on the pod, you're always welcome. We love you and appreciate you. Beautiful, man. Well, I know you're currently at the Operator Hacker House right now in Arizona. I think Max is probably walking through the door soon. So I don't want to
Yes.
keep you from building the next great RevTech company, but and so excited to be on this journey with you. I can't wait to announce it to the world and, just go out there, bring some focus, creativity, and connection back to the sales profession. But I appreciate you, brother.
Love you. See you, man.
Love you, brother. And to all our listeners, I say it every week. Listening's one thing, executing's different. Of course, hopefully we gave you some ideas to wrestle with. And we'll see you next week.